how we work, where we work, when we work, even what we're doing when working is changing for huge numbers of employees. But we know that human beings tend to not really like behaviour change. So these sweeping changes that are taking place in workforces right now is going to be having an impact on employee well-being. So I really wanted to get into this issue and talk about it in more depth. So I'm delighted to have with me today Sheila Champion-Smeeth, who is Global Head of Wellbeing, People and Communities at Cisco. And we can start to unpick some of the impacts of all these changes that we're seeing, from changing behaviours on wellbeing, the differences that Sheila is seeing across the globe, and also what she sees coming down the line as the future wellbeing changes and challenges that we might be facing. So, Sheila, starting with the first question, what are the impacts of these changing behaviours around us in the way that we work? What impact is that having on employee wellbeing?
Debbie, thanks so much for having me with you all today. Well, it's huge, isn't it? It is just such a massive impact on our physical, our emotional, our social and our financial well-being. It's all parts of that. And it's all of those coming together that we're seeing the impact right now. I mean, this pandemic has hit us all so hard, many of us more than others. And I think we need to acknowledge that. But also just acknowledging that every single person is going through some pretty significant challenges that they're facing, of uncertainty. How do I have hope in the coming months ahead of us? And also just understanding that it's been a tough 18 months. I try and keep count. It's nearly 19, I think, now, as we talk about that. But, you know, it's been a really tough time. And at the end of the day, we've had to make so many decisions around the fact that we're in this world of uncertainty, and our brains have been having to cope with all of that different decision making, whether it's, okay, I'm not commuting to work anymore, but I need to fit in a workout. What does that look like? Have I got the equipment to do that? I don't want to do that workout anymore. I want to do mindfulness. Decisions around that, and decisions now around, I want to go and have those social connections, but I don't know if I'm ready. And then you go and have the social connections, and then you're thinking, that was all right, but it was different to what it used to be. So our brains are having to deal with so much right now, and it is really, really hard, having a significant impact on us at home, our relationships that we're having, but also obviously in the workplace, and how we're working with one another, and how we have to really get to the depths of being purposeful, I think, in the moments that we have, whether that is at home or in the workplace as well. When I say in the workplace, obviously that might still be at home for some people.
Yes. So, picking up on that, and you're talking about going out and seeing colleagues or friends. I think, we've talked about this before, about the social well-being, and it's actually, perhaps in some ways, we've been able to communicate more with each other than ever before. But it's also, communication has become more difficult. We don't have the, it's very transactional through a screen, and that also must be impacting people's social well-being.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, coming from Cisco, we adore the technology, and it is really, really important to have that. And look what it's done to enable us to stay connected. But of course, people have got this fatigue now of being on the screens all the time. I actually don't think, Debbie, we understand what the physical health impact has been of us working like this all the time, by the way. I think, and even just having headphones in, I'm not sure what that's going to mean, but that's something for another day for us to perhaps ponder on. But at the end of the day, this impact of being face to face on the laptop screen, the fact that I can see myself all the time as well as the other people on the screen, is an interesting thing again that it's doing to our minds and what we're having to think about all the time. In fact, I did have a social interaction with one of my colleagues recently where we were on a call together in person with somebody else on the screen. And it was fascinating, because I'm thinking, actually, this in-person experience isn't that good, because we're sitting side by side. I can't see her anymore because we're next to each other. So actually, as much as that social element of working together next to each other is wonderful, and you can have the coffee chats and whatever else, actually you can't look into somebody else's eyes and have that connection if you really work at it deeper on the screens with one another. And if you're in a bigger group environment in the new hybrid world where you are connected on screens and in the workplace, how are you bringing people in and being inclusive through the technology is so critical as well.
Yeah, definitely an area that needs a lot more thinking about than we've done up till now. So Sheila, obviously you've got a global role, Cisco is global, so you are seeing differences in different countries. And so if you've got your global hat on, what are the differences that you're seeing globally that perhaps would be useful for other employers to be aware of?
Yeah, I think what the most important thing is for global organizations, or just for all of us as human beings, is that every single country, every single community within a country is going to be in a different position from a perspective of the pandemic. So I think there's a couple of things to call out. It's the fact that understanding that and knowing that that's the situation is absolutely critical. And then the other thing that I just love doing is learning and understanding from those people that I connect with in the different countries, asking them, what's it like for you today? And just hearing from them about what's going on in their country. Because if we start to offer wellbeing solutions where we talk about going out for walking meetings, yet that country's in lockdown and they can't come out, it's like, well, that's not relevant for me. And guess what? They're going to switch off straight away and not feel included as well. So I think listening is absolutely key. And obviously that's one of the skill sets of the future for anyone working in any leadership role, is listening, having empathy and compassion as well for what a country might be going through. The other thing that's cropped up a little bit in some of our wellbeing research that we've done recently, yes, I can finally talk about data and insights, Debbie, is actually that, you know, we see that people who are caregivers are struggling the most with every aspect of their well-being, whether that's their personal well-being or their social well-being and the connections that they have. And you might think, well, okay, I'm not surprised about that. But actually, it means that there's something we need to do about it. People who feel like they don't have the space to exercise and as a caregiver are suffering, you know, terribly. And if you are a caregiver, the results are saying that they don't have time to eat healthily, for example. So how can we come up with ways to help those people think about preparation is key? And here's some things to think about in your everyday life. But at the end of the day, I think, you know, it's hard across the globe and it's difficult, but we are all human beings and it doesn't really matter where you live or what you do, but actually we all have the opportunity to focus on our well-being and the 24 hours that we have every single day to make sure that we are carving out time within our schedule to take care of ourselves, our family, and guess what? The work and the productivity will flow, but we have to do that. And it's one of the hardest things that people talk about as well.
Absolutely. And thinking about those things and well-being, there's a bigger picture as well that's perhaps a bit more business focused, but what we're seeing a lot in the papers at the moment or online and so on is this thing about the Great Resignation, where perhaps employees have taken this time to rethink their lives, and you mentioned purpose earlier. So, what's your thoughts when employers are starting to see attrition? What role can the well-being side, what can well-being directors, managers do to make people feel more included, or is there a role for well-being basically in the Great Resignation?
Yeah, I mean, there's a role for well-being in absolutely everything, obviously. And let me just touch on this one because it's close to my heart and I'm very passionate about it. I think, again, the pandemic has been a time when we've reflected personally on our lives, our situations that we're all in, and thinking about, actually, do you know what? This isn't serving me well right now. So I need to look at something different that I need to do with my life. Now, that might be related to work, but it could be related to any part of your life that is going on for you. But the Great Resignation is kind of interesting. I mean, yes, we're seeing, attrition at Cisco. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? Who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, this is happening across various companies, so you're bound to see it going on. And what I love to think about now is actually when people are telling me that actually I'm leaving Cisco, I say to them, I'm so proud of you and good on you for making that decision, because it's not easy to make that kind of decision, particularly not when there's so much uncertainty around. But I think we need to be encouraging of people, making those sort of shifts. And of course, if there's somebody that you feel shouldn't be leaving the organization, have that conversation around what could we do better to keep you to stay perhaps, or what could we be doing better for our people that are here still that you found difficult and may have been one of the reasons that you're leaving. And part of it, I think, that'll come out of those discussions, actually people are talking about their personal well-being. And this is not to do with the company, but this is to do with what I need to do and make a change in my life for. So perhaps how are we upskilling people to even think about those things and be open to people moving across organizations and getting different skill sets. But yeah, I think it's yes, it's a challenge for organizations, but I think we have to embrace it and really get to the crux of why people are leaving, so we can do something about that perhaps as well.
Yeah, it's taking the opportunity and not just burying your head in the sand. Absolutely.
No, definitely.
And again, we keep touching on this thing about purpose, and you mentioned it there, where people might be reassessing their own purpose. So I now want to look forward and the kind of new wellbeing challenges that you think might be emerging in the future due to all the changes that we've gone through. What do you think we should be seeing?
Well, I guess one of the things I'm delighted about is the fact that wellbeing is most definitely on the agenda now. 6 years ago, I was always struggling to get into the conversation with the business leaders, but now it's absolutely front and central on our business strategy. And for us, powering an inclusive future for all means that we focus on inclusive wellbeing everywhere as well. So those discussions with the business leaders is paramount. We know we have to take care of our people in order to do great work. We have to enable well-being to ensure we have sustainable performance and engagement in organizations. And so no longer a nice to have, Debbie, but an absolute critical factor. And I guess in some ways I'm thinking about it from a point of sustainable well-being. And what I mean by that is we've all talked about over the years of, well-being is important, but how do we embed it into our everyday life? And of course, we talk about small steps and, the changes that you personally need to make, because different people need different things at different times. What you need, Debbie, will be different to what I need today. But actually think about how do we have that sustainable well-being over a period of time. It's not something that, we're going to do this month and actually next month we might just have a month off well-being. It doesn't work like that. It has to be embedded into our everyday life. Now, of course, what that also means is what can we do from a sustainable well-being perspective in the environment today? Everything that's going on in the world, we have to make a change that we're going to be proud of. And we've all got the opportunity to do that right now in this moment, so that we look back in 20 years' time and say, I made a positive change when it comes to the sustainability of the planet and also my well-being. And by doing that, I felt good about myself, which comes back to then you're looking after yourself and taking care of your well-being as well. But of course, the term is hybrid world. And what does that really mean? We're not through the pandemic, of course. And yes, some companies are definitely back in the office and people are able to commute and get back to that side of life. But many people are still at home. And what we're doing is encouraging leaders and teams to have the conversation to say, what is going to work for you, team member? What is going to work for us in getting the work done, and what do you need to focus on from your wellbeing boundary perspective as well? We've allocated, every leaders have these 90-minute conversations. We've structured a deck that helps walk them through that. What's your style of work that's going to matter most? How do we collaborate online? And in global audience, how do we collaborate offline to get the work done better and in a more productive and sustainable way? And of course, from an inclusive perspective, Debbie, if you're in a hybrid world of work where you might be in the office and I'm sitting here at home on the end of a screen, how are you bringing in those people who are in those different locations into the conversation so that their voice is heard and we all have an impact? And making sure that we're really sort of making some change. We honestly do have an opportunity. And the one thing I'd always say is just be motivated by what you do every single day as well.
Absolutely. And Sheila, let's just throw this one at you. So for our benefits audience, so the people who are employee benefit managers, do you think there are any particular benefits that might change, shift, new ones come in? You know, if you look to the crystal ball, what do you think might need to come into play?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Debbie. We're absolutely thinking about it. And of course, you know, wellbeing is kind of, it's not nothing, but you need the benefits offerings to support the well-being of the people as well. So it's absolutely critical to have that interdependency. Now, what do I think people need to be focusing on? And I do think you need to do it now. Providers need to do it now, brokers need to do it now, and companies and you know, global benefits leaders and benefits leaders need to focus on this, because the world is changing and what people need is going to be different. And I know that there's a lot of great well-being and benefit offerings out there today, but we have to look at the future. So how does a benefit offering support employees who might be in the office, but they also might be working at home? Is there an opportunity to think about, and I know this, you know, many companies have done this, but if you have a well-being fund or something like that, how are you then setting up the structure of what people might engage from that well-being fund in? So thinking about making some really cool offerings in the space of physical, social, financial, and emotional well-being that allows people to really feel connected to what the organization also believes is important in their culture to bring to life for them. Because at the end of the day, I might care about my well-being, but if the organization and my leader and my team doesn't care about it, you're going to get nowhere. Everybody has to be on the same page. The other things I want to talk about from a benefits perspective, telehealth. You know, we're going to be in different situations. People are going to need things at different times. So we really need to, you know, take that forward and make sure those offerings are available. And digital coaching, our mental health is suffering now more than ever, Debbie. And so how do we find ways that people might be able to connect to coaching or counseling support with somebody that they're going to truly feel connected to as well? And actually be able to have that offline conversation, because you never know what's going on in the environment in the office or the environment at home. And people need to be able to feel that they don't have to pick up the phone, they don't have to do a video call, but they can be connected to someone that's helping them, perhaps on a digital mode and platform as well, live in real time.
Really wise words, and I agree with you completely, especially on that coaching point of view. I think it's going to be so important going forward. Well, Sheila, I can see that our time has rapidly drawn to a close, and we're talking about an area that is moving on an ongoing basis. It's changing. We're a long way from being in a settled pattern of behaviour. I wonder if we'll ever be in a settled behaviour patterns, but we're certainly right in the eye of the storm now for employees and workforces and their families and people close to them. So, and it doesn't really matter what sector you're in, what your job role is, what country you're based in, we're all going through massive change. So I really appreciate you joining us today, sharing some of your thoughts, your insights, your experiences. That will hopefully touch other people, that make them think and help them in their jobs as well. So thanks very much, Sheila.
Thanks so much, Debbie. One thing to just end on, I think the thing to all remember is just be kinder than necessary to yourself and to each other as well.
Thank you.